We're actually going back by request to do a short series that I did quite a while ago. But it was my request that we bring it back and do the 2 weeks of the series, and it's called Puzzles. So this is why we're doing this, and probably most of you have never heard this, so it'll be fine. A couple of you have heard it, but it'll be a good reminder, I guess. In our lives, things are not always as they appear. Things are not always as they seem, and we have to learn to deal with that sometimes. Quick story. We, as a church, we are involved in Compassion International, which is basically that little box that went around. We collect money for that, and then we have a child that we've adopted through the church, and we send that to Compassion International, and they give the child everything that they have to have in order to live and be healthy. So that's one thing we do. However, I want to tell you a quick story about a pastor who actually went on a mission trip with Compassion International, and they were wherever, I'm not sure what country they were in when they were doing it this time, but they were on this big bus, a bunch of them, going town to town. So you can imagine, big bus pulls into a town that's very poor, it gets some attention. Well, this one pastor happened to be sitting up towards the front, so he was one of the first people off the bus. And he said when he got off the bus, mobs of kids saw him, and they just came flocking to him, and they're surrounding him, and they're all yelling and everything like that, and they're jumping up and touching his arms and touching his chest, and he had no idea what's happening. And it's just all so much at once. And he said finally he sees these two teenage kids, two teenage boys come over, and they come over and they're checking them out, and then they finally say something in their language to the rest of the kids, and all the rest of the kids went from and they all walked away. And he said to the two people that were with the group, who were kind of like the translators, he said, "What was that all about?" And they're like, "Man, they thought you were John Cena." So, you don't know who John Cena is, very big wrestler. So, hey, things are not always as they appear, as they seem in our life. As a matter of fact, our lives are kind of like a big giant puzzle, right? And if you look at a puzzle, I have a small puzzle here. If you look at a puzzle, I mean, what do you do with a puzzle? In this case, when you get a puzzle, you probably will open it up, get all the pieces going in one way, one direction. You'll get them all figured out. And then some of you are probably, if you're going to do a puzzle, you're going to take the blue ones and you're going to put them over here, and you're going to take the green ones and you're going to put them over here. And this way I kind of know, well, this is the sky. Well, this is probably the grass, right? You're going to do something along those lines. Some of you are going to be like, no, I got to start with a border. I got to get the outside looking just right before I can go any further, right? And then some of us are going to be like, puzzles? I'm watching the game. But our lives are very much like puzzles, and we never quite know what you're going to get. Now, if you're going to do a puzzle, what do you need to do a puzzle? I mean, you can just start slapping pieces together. But the one thing you and I need is puzzle top. Because this tells you what you're trying to build here, right? Well, here's the problem in my life, in your life, when we're trying to figure out the puzzle that's our life, is you and I, we don't have this. This is what God has. He's the only one that has this. So we're just going to put that back there. God is the one who has the puzzle top. God can see what the ultimate puzzle is eventually going to look like. And you and I, we don't have that benefit, do we? I mean, sometimes when you're doing a puzzle, You know, you're going to be on a roll, and you're going to slap this piece into that piece, and that might have actually worked right there. You're just going to start slapping pieces together, and you're going to be like, man, I'm a puzzle ninja. I know where everything goes, right? And then all of a sudden, you're going to get a piece like this. And this piece doesn't seem to fit in anywhere. And this piece, sometimes it's a piece that you might not want in your life. But yeah, here you go. And here you have this odd piece. Sometimes it fits together natural, and it's all working out. And then life throws a curve, and you get the miscellaneous piece, and you're not really sure what to do with it. Does it make sense? Why did you get this piece in your life at this particular point in time? Why? And God might be trying to tell you something by giving you this piece that you might not realize. And actually, kind of look at this here. Now we see things imperfectly, like puzzling reflections in a mirror. But then we will see everything with perfect clarity. All that I know now is partial and incomplete. But then I will know everything completely, just as God now knows me completely. So you're getting pieces of your life at different times. You don't see the box cover. You don't know where this is going. And it causes problems. It causes trouble. But you see these words here? We have a now, right? We have now, and then we have a then in there. There's always a now, and there's always a then. And we get so stuck in only being able to see the right now. So what do you do with this? With this piece that you're getting right now. Might be, you know, you just got that loss of a job. What do you do with that? This wasn't what you were planning for at this point in your life, but you've lost your job, and it seems terrible, and all you can see is the right now. You can't see the then. You might be in a financial crisis at this point in time in your life for whatever reasons, and that's all you can see is the financial crisis that's right in front of you. Even though you've been in financial crisis before, and here you are, you see the right now, right? Loss of your health. You know, you were looking forward to retirement, and everything was going to be good, and this was coming right up and everything. And then you go to the doctors, and you're going to go travel and see the world and everything, and he says, by the way, you've got cancer. He gives you one of these. What do you do with that? What do you do when it seems like a door closes in your life? What do you do when your marriage is falling apart? And all you can do is see the right now, but it's spiraling out of control. The question that you and I have to ask ourselves is, how do we live in the now, trusting God for the then? How do we deal with what's happening now in our lives and trust God for what's going to eventually happen? Because like I said, we can't see that puzzle top. We can't see the ultimate conclusion, right? And to look at this a little further, I want to look at a story in our Bible about John the Baptist, okay? So I got the same thing down here, so I'm just going to read it from here, okay? When John, who was in prison, so okay, I read it off the bat, that tells us, well, this isn't good. John is in prison. And if you're wondering who this John is, this is John the Baptist. This is the same John that God said, I will send, as a voice in the wilderness. He will prepare the way of the Lord. This is that John. This is the John who, ate wild locusts. This is the same John who baptized Jesus. This is the same John who, after baptizing Jesus, says, the skies opened up and we heard the voice of God proclaiming, this is Jesus. This is the same John who, when he was in his mother's womb, his mother was visited by Jesus' mother, Mary, when she was pregnant, because they were cousins, okay? And we're told that these cousins come together, and when Mary speaks, John's mother says that the baby inside her womb leapt for joy just out of the sound of our Savior's mother's voice. So we can say that this John the Baptist knows who Jesus is, right? So when John was in prison, when John, who was in prison, heard about the deeds of the Messiah, so he hears about Jesus, okay, and everything he does, he sent his disciples to ask him. So he sends his disciples to ask Jesus, are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else? And you got to think, well, John, you know Jesus. You know who this guy is, right? Everything I just told you, he's well aware of who Jesus is. But yet he's sending this question, hey, are you the one we were waiting for, or should we just wait for somebody else? Now, why is that? Because John's in prison, and he can't see past his current situation. He can't see past his circumstances, right? So Jesus replied to John's disciples. He said, go back and report to John what you hear and see. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor, to which all Christians, we stand up and we high five and we're like, amen, brother, testify, and all that kind of stuff. Nothing but good stuff, right? That's what we hear out of that. That's what we get, right? So he continues, he says, blessed is anyone who does not stumble on account of me. To which we probably would say, what? Okay, you just said, all these good things are happening and all that kind of stuff, and then you're going to say, well, blessed is one who does not stumble on account of me. I don't understand. What does that mean? Jesus is saying, you know what, I am the Messiah. And you go tell him all these good things that are happening. All these good things that you are seeing. But what he's saying is, I know what's happening with John. But even in spite of what's happening, I'm still the Messiah. I'm still in charge. I know I'm still on the throne. And I'm still the Messiah in spite of his circumstances. And Jesus doesn't get mad, like how dare he question me, because let's face it, Jesus can handle us questioning. You've all done it. We've all done it in the course of our faith. We've all questioned things, right? But he's got broad enough shoulders to handle that. He doesn't get mad. Instead, a few verses later, this is what he says. Truly I tell you, among those born of women, so who is he talking about? Those who are born of women. All of us. Okay? Among those born of women, there has not risen anyone greater than John the Baptist. So right now, he's just confirming who John is. Right? Just confirming it. And there's none greater. But I'm still God. I'm still the Messiah. in spite of everything that John's going through, I'm still in charge. This is one of those things we have to learn to live with. And this, just this phrase, in the doubts of today, we trust in his tomorrows. When things go wrong for us, we still put our trust in God. I had songs that were just, we had too many songs today, and there was another one I wanted to do, and I didn't do, but it's Mercy Me Even If. And it's one I've said I relate to so much, because he talks in the very beginning of that, in that song, he talks about, hey, you know, it's sometimes, you know, life is bad. And sometimes, and I relate to it, sometimes it's hard to sit up here and it's hard to tell you guys everything's going to be all right when things in your own life aren't good. But even if things don't work out, our hope is still in him. Our trust is still in him. Our faith is still in him. Our faith is in God and not the outcome we want, because that's what happens, right? We often think things how we want to think. We hear the doctor give us some devastating news, and for some reason we hear that little voice of God say, "It's going to be all right." And what do? We immediately think, well, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to beat this, it's going to cure, everything's going to be great in my life, and it's all going to go away. But that's not what God said. He just said it's going to be okay. Right? And I can give you an example of a pastor, because everybody always thinks, well, it's easy for the pastor to sit up and tell us it's going to be all right, and tell us all these things. But let me give you an example of a pastor. A pastor whose father died from cancer. He was called and told that he needed to come home, that his father wasn't doing very good. He was in the hospital. And he said when he got to the hospital, his father had pretty much been unresponsive. He had restraints put on his wrist because he would occasionally try to pull out the IVs and stuff, so they kind of had his hands tied down so he wouldn't do that. See, one of the big things is his father said that he did not want to be kept alive on any kind of life support or drugs or anything like that. And yet here he was being kept alive on these things. So he said when he went into the hospital, his mother was at the foot of the bed speaking to a doctor and nurse. I don't remember the story. And he said he went up there and he bent over and he said to the dad, his father, he said, "Dad, I'm here." And he says his dad opened his eyes a little bit and took his right hand and just held it up as far as he could until that restraint grabbed him, and he just shook his fist at him. And he couldn't help but think that they had told him he was really sedated and everything, and he thought, well, maybe he's not as sedated as you guys thought he was. And he was kind of glad those restraints were there. And he said he went out with his mother outside the room, and his mother said, well, what was that all about? And he said, well, I think it's because we have all these medicines going into him and the IVs, and this isn't what he wanted. And she said, you know what, I think you're right. So they went to the doctor, and they said that this wasn't what their father wanted, and that they wanted him taken off everything. And the doctor said, you know what this means, right? That once we take him off of this, he's going to die. And they said, yeah, but that's what he wants. So they took him off everything. And I don't know how much time goes by, I think a day or so. He comes back to the hospital. And he goes in to see his father, and now there's nothing on him. And he goes up to his dad and says the same thing. He says, Dad, I'm here. And he said his dad opened up his eyes, and he says his dad lifted both arms up. And he said, as he looked down to his dad, he said, "You want a hug, don't you?" And his dad just shook his head yes. So he gives his dad a hug, and then he says his dad went to sleep, and he died. And he said he wishes he could tell you some story that was, oh, but there was these doctors and nurses and they hadn't found Christ, and, because of this they did. But that didn't happen. His dad just died. And this is what he had. One of these pieces. So what do you do with this piece when everything you know just got crushed? What do you do? We have to remember, for one thing, we have to remember that we serve a God who is much bigger than this. And he takes all of these pieces in our lives, the good pieces, the bad pieces, the corner pieces, the middle pieces, and he works them out for our good. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean there's not going to be problems. But he's working for our good. And this is what he says to us. Sorry, one more. He says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts. Neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." We're all going to get some bad pieces. But that doesn't change who God is. And that God is in control at all times. And we're not alone. Because Jesus got a really bad piece too. And he got it because of us. And he took that piece all the way to the cross. Your frustration in your life, those bad moments, is because you can't see this. All you can see is the now. You can't see the then. But the then is coming. When things will become a little more clear, a little more obvious. And when it's bad, it just seems really intense, doesn't it? But the then is coming. And even in the nows, Jesus and God are still in control. Whoops. Yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart, but even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end. You see the beginning. You see the middle. Only God sees the end. This is for you to not see. This is for God's eyes only. And he will be there in the end. And he will be there in your nows. And he will be there in your thens. You just have to trust him. To get through those bad moments, those intense moments, you have to put your trust in him and that he is who he says he is. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we are so grateful and so thankful that we have had such a great week in this church. Going all the way back last week, it was a pleasure just to be able to sit here and to share a Thanksgiving meal with everybody and to decorate the church. We are so thankful that we were able to come together wherever it was we may have been Thursday to share in a meal and just to remember all the things that we're thankful for. And we are so thankful, God, for allowing us yesterday to be able to work on the float, being able to set up here at the church and to meet so many people, to hand out so many candy canes, to get our name out there. And we are so thankful for everybody that partook in that and helped in that and just made the day a success. God, we know that all these things that we do, we don't do it for our own benefit, but we do it for your glory. We do it in hopes of perhaps bringing one more person to know Christ. We do it to bring one more person to the cross. And God, we just pray that we as a church never start to look inward, but we always look outward. We always look for those who are out there lost, struggling, and who are not having a relationship with you. Let us do that in this world. Let us serve you in that way. Let us, as we said in our Bible study today, let us be a reflection of your light into this otherwise dark world. We ask all these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.